Hello again, YouTubers, and now fellow Bond fans. I probably should have put that in my first two reviews. Anyway, this is Solomon Pleasant back for my, hopefully it was long-awaited, my long-awaited review of GoldFinger. Now, before I begin, let me just point out by saying that I really like GoldFinger. It is a superb film. As a matter of fact, I read somewhere that it made it on the top 50, if not top 100, greatest films of all time. Grant was 49, but that's still higher than any other Bond film. So, this is a really good film. I really like this film. Having that said, let us dive right into our review of GoldFinger. So, as usual, we start with the storyline, the plot, yada yada yada. Now, this one is again one of my hands-down favorite stories, because it makes so much sense and is one of the closest stories to actually go through if Bond wouldn't have, come in and stop the villain or anything. Basically, Orc Goldfinger is smuggling gold via melting it down and then blah blah blah. And he's going to basically nuke Fort Knox. Warning, probably should have given spoilers ahead of time. Spoilers. He's basically going to put a nuclear bomb from China. Chinese gave him a nuclear bomb. He's going to put it into Fort Knox and detonate it from the inside. He's not stealing any of the gold. It's not bank heist. It's just, nope, I'm going to nuke this place. That way, his gold will then skyrocket in price because America's gold will be completely useless for God knows how long. And if you take a look at the security of Fort Knox now, this doesn't seem as probable, and also considering a lot of people don't consider Fort Knox to actually have gold, but I don't believe that. I think there's gold in Fort Knox because GoldFinger is amazing, and GoldFinger says so. Also in description might actually show a small little video that I took of Fort Knox during my tours of the Orient. Anyway, so this story is really good, and as Bond stories go, it's a really good setup, and as you saw in my Let's Play review, it's one of my favorite missions from the 007 Legends because it's just so good. I mean, you're invading Fort Knox, and we'll get into scenery in a little bit, but Fort Knox looks really good, so yeah, story is amazing, so I'm gonna give it a star. Alright, now we've got scenery. The scenery is again really good, and this is one of the best looking of the Bond films for Connery's era. For Sean Connery's era, this is hands down one of the best looking. For me, personally. Mainly because you got, not sure whether to say the Golden Girl is scenery or not, it's still pretty good. Miami looks nice, the hills and wherever they are look nice, the factory looks nice, Fort Knox looks like what you would expect from Fort Knox, considering nobody's been in Fort Knox, nobody knows what that looks like. That's pretty accurate representation, though. And everything just looks really nice, and while not the most visually stunning, it's still really good looking. It just looks really good. And it looks very genuine. And again, probably one of the best looking of the Sean Connery Bond films. So, I give scenery a star as well. Moving on to follow-up. Gee, do you really think that's that hard? Yeah, following up From Russia with Love. Now, granted, From Russia with Love is still pretty good, but they left a good enough amount of space where it's like, hey, you guys can come in and knock this out of the park, which it was a grand slam. No. So, it's just a really excellent follow-up. It's not that hard to follow up From Russia with Love, but again, it's still a little bit hard at least, but it followed it up excellent. This was an excellent follow-up, and for that reason, I also give it a star. Theme music. Now, this isn't one of my favorite theme musics. It's not one of my favorite themes. But as Bond themes go, it's still really good. I mean, I kind of get into it. It's not like one of my personal favorites. I don't listen to it constantly, but when I hear it, I'm like, yeah, I like this. This is a nice opening theme. And the opening credits with the Golden Girl are also pretty awesome. They also show some scenes from Dr. No and some scenes from Russia with Love, so that's kind of nice too. And it's all portrayed on the Golden Girl. I think that's pretty good, considering that's one of the main things that they're selling is the Golden Girl. Which was also a really awesome scene. But all in all, the opening theme is really good, and the theme music for GoldFinger is really nice, so I give that a star. Finally, we got characters. Sean Connery is Bond. That's already a point. Bond girls, technically there are 3, but as I've stated in a couple of my Let's Plays, certain Bond girls tend to not be as successful as others, and here's what I mean by that. You start out with Jill Masterson, I think. Okay, that sounds like a pretty normal name. I guess she's going to be the love interest. Oh, wait, no, she dies in the hotel thanks to Oddjob, which we'll talk about him in a bit. But, oh, spray faded to gold, death. Oh, well, that's a shame. Well, that's expected. Sometimes Bond girls die. All right. What about the next one? Tilly Masterson. Oh, her sister, so it's going to be a partnership thing, and then they both want revenge and both want to get GoldFinger, and it's going to be one of those, oh, okay, so we're going to do that and have them have a fitting romance at the end. Oh, but wait, Oddjob kills her, too. Dang it, Oddjob, stop killing off the Bond girls. It's kind of hard to do that when you keep killing them. We can't... Bond needs to have somebody to bang at the end of this. I mean, come on. Okay, so we got 2 Bond girls down, so we only have one other girl who could possibly fit the role. What's her name again? Pussy Galore? You all... That's a suggestive eyebrow raise right there. You all know what they're referencing. You all know. You all know. It's so in-your-face obvious. It's kind of funny. And at the same time, it's so inappropriate, but you could get away with it. Because this is the 1980s or 90s where PG-13 hasn't been invented yet, so these films are PG. Yeah, so Pussy Galore is the main Bond girl, and she starts out a baddie and is actually more or less one of the first female baddies that... Yeah, she's the first technically female baddie that Bond gets with at the end. Now, Tatiana Romanova from Russia with Love was also technically a baddie, but she didn't know it. Pussy Galore knows she's a bad guy until the end. And actually, I'll get into that a little bit, why, and there's a small section about how Operation Grand Slam failed, but she actually plays a really important role, despite the fact that her name is hilarious. I'm not sure exactly what GoldFinger was thinking there, but regardless. MI6 does a good job again. Emma's fine, I think. Moneypenny is very nice. We get to see our first look at Q Branch. That is awesome. From Russia with Love gave us a little hint of what might Q Branch be, but this is the first film to actually show Q Branch. That is awesome. I mean, Q Branch looks how you would expect it. Gadgets going off everywhere, things exploding, stuff catching on fire. It's just awesome. And then we see the Aston Martin. And every Bond, and from then on, every Bond film had an Aston Martin for the most part, or had some really awesome looking car. And every Bond fan knows the Aston Martin is awesome. And that one scene, and you get to see Q for the first time interacting with Bond, and it's really good, especially considering that Bond destroys things and Q builds things, so it's a really good matchup, and it's a really good, like, interaction. When they're talking about the car, it's like, okay, this button has an ejector seat. Sean Connery's just like, really? An ejector seat? That's from, like, dude, that's from, like, spy films. We're not spy film. It's just really awesome. Q Branch is awesome. Q is awesome. Aston Martin is awesome. All the good guys are awesome. What about the bad guys? Well, let's start with the Let's start with the henchmen. Wait, now. Start with GoldFinger. The guy who has the name in the film. He is one of the best. Not the best villain, but one of my top 3, clearly. I mean, obviously one of my top 3 villains. Because he is just a really good villain. He's a villain that you would expect. I mean, I like all the scenes that he has. That scene where he loses the poker thing, it's a card game in Miami, it's like, yeah, that's a good scene. Scene where he plays golf with Bond, that's an awesome scene. The laser scene is hands down one of my favorite Bond scenes ever. I'm going to say that right now. That is one of my favorite scenes from any James Bond film. And you'd think with all this praise, you'd think I would have seen this first, but no, that was from Russia with Love. But GoldFinger, the laser scene, is hands down one of my favorite scenes. Because Bond is literally helpless, and he's trying to bluff his way out, which I find kind of weird that he does. It's just kind of weird, but the banter that he has with GoldFinger is actually really good, because it's just like, alright, I'll start bantering and see if I get him scared. No, better start, like, threatening for my life here. GoldFinger, hey, do you want me to talk about something? I can talk about something. No, Mr. Bond. And then he gives one of the best lines ever uttered by a villain. Blofeld, take notes. He just says this. No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. That is one of the best lines ever uttered by a Bond villain. One of the best. Because it's just... Dude, do you expect me to seriously spare your life? No, I want you dead. So I'm gonna have you die. Pretty simple. And it looks like Bond is gonna die, and then Bond gets his way out of that, which, again, I'm not really sure how that worked, but it worked. And then you got Goldfinger's death, which is actually one of the more, like, oh well, he died. He's playing his golden harp. Yeah. But he has not one of the most awesome death scenes, but still a pretty good death scene, I think. What else can I say? GoldFinger's pretty awesome. His plan is awesome. Operation Grand Slam is one of the best villain plans as well. And I've read about this, and actually, a lot of people speculate that Operation Grand Slam would have been successful if James Bond had not convinced Pussy Galore to go to the good side. If Pussy Galore was a guy, I think Operation Grand Slam would have worked. It would not have failed. GoldFinger would have won if maybe there was a gender change, or maybe Pussy Galore didn't get swooed by Bond, or maybe it was a different agent that went there, but Operation Grand Slam would have worked. It really would have. For the time being. Now, if you look at Fort Knox, it's like, yeah, I doubt that would have worked. And with the whole gold scandal thing, people saying that there isn't gold in Fort Knox, I don't care. I digress. GoldFinger's awesome. Anyway, on to the henchman, Oddjob. One of my favorite henchmen. He is just awesome. He's got one of the most iconic death things ever. Just throw a razor-brimmed hat and kill somebody. That is awesome. And he is the first, like, silent henchman that you see in the Bond series. He's just, like, stoic. Just stoic. Never talks. As one of the most awesome henchmen James Bond fights, Oddjob is one of the best henchman fight scenes that I've seen in Sean Connery's, at least. And he has one of the most iconic villain deaths, I think. I think when you think of Oddjob, y'all pretty much know his death. For those of you who don't, spoilers. They're fighting, but hits him with a gold brick and doesn't do anything. Key fact, gold is actually a softer of the metals, so that is somewhat plausible. And then Oddjob's just like, dude, that's not working. And then they continue fighting. Bond gets his hat and Bond is like thinking this whole time, dude, I don't know how to throw this. I better think of something. Oh, hey, that wire's cut. Oh, into the bar, and Oddjob's just like, dude, you're screwed. Goes to grab it. Bond gets the fuse, and Oddjob gets electrocuted. That's pretty awesome. And then Bond's just like, oh, he blew a fuse. It's like, what? And while I'm on that topic of that fight scene, when Bond is defusing the nuke, that 007 thing that they have at the end, that is just, I'm just like, yeah, you do that. You can flat out do whatever you want. And Oddjob is an awesome henchman. He's just a really awesome henchman. Now, there were some other minor characters that died off pretty quickly that I don't necessarily remember, but I think with the cast that's given, it all comes together and it all just meshes well. Yeah, and Sean Connery is Bond. What else can you say? Sean Connery is my favorite James Bond, and he does really well in Goldfinger. This is no doubt Sean Connery's best Bond film. Sean Connery's best. And it's just awesome. So for that reason, I give characters a star. So, what else did you expect? Goldfinger gets a 10 out of 10 or 5 out of 5 in your case. It is a awesome Bond film. And because honestly, think about it. Honestly, think about this. When it comes to James Bond films and people who want to get into James Bond, two things usually happen. You either say, okay, if you want to start from the beginning, from going straight order, start with Dr. No. If you want to just start with the best Bond film, which one do you usually point them to? Some will say GoldenEye. I will give them GoldenEye credit, but I would point them to Goldfinger. I would just be like, start with Goldfinger. That's usually what people happen. When people think James Bond, they either think Goldfinger or GoldenEye. Most people think Goldfinger. I honestly think that. I could be wrong, but Goldfinger is awesome. Goldfinger is a masterpiece, I think. It is one of the best Bond films. I don't know if I have anything else to say, so this has been Solomon Pleasant, and what is next week? Alright. This could go down a little. Alright. This has been Solomon Pleasant, signing off.